So is Mr. Maloney coming in?
Supposed to be here at 6.
Okay. And then you want to go over the agenda first? Any item, questions that we about the agenda items?
Yeah. The traffic permit application. I don't know if everybody's had time to review it or not. Unfortunately, I was getting the maps out, and then I went through my folder, and I took the stuff out to work on it at home, and I must have left it on my desk.
Happens.
Conservation Advisory Board issued their opinion on the application. We also received that Park and Recreation Advisory Board communication where they did their part under letter D it was, or whatever it was. I don't know what people want to do about that. September 19th, I believe, was the application. Do you have it? I just need to see.
I have the whole file.
Yeah, but you're not gonna have what I ended up doing.
Oh, I didn't get the parks thing.
September 19th is when we received this,
Uh-huh,
and we're supposed to act within 62 days.
uh-huh.
So that's coming up real quick. And this person would like to start if they are allowed to, because some of the season opens October 25th, October 25th, although other seasons go open until a different time. I went through it and did what I needed to do, but I don't know if anybody else had the opportunity to do that. I sent a letter, I forwarded their letter today. Did you get it by email? Well, here, you can read it there, that's right there.
Do you have the one from Parks too?
That should have been forwarded also. I don't have it with me because that's one that was in my folder that I took out.
Not on me, no. Parks, I think, so the two letters, the Parks letter, correct me if I'm wrong, it was their recommendation of what lots they thought was correct, essentially, or their definition of,
There are lots that they thought traffic should not be allowed in.
right.
Do you want me to print out a copy of the letter?
And then the,
I have it.
Oh, okay, never mind. And,
Okay.
so. What did they feel wasn't?
and then the other one, the Conservation Advisory Board basically said they thought the application was incomplete.
Yeah, they didn't, I have to take it back, the others keep it here, so we're gonna discuss it.
The letters and the application.
This is the application. So as they reviewed the application, they didn't think it was sufficient enough. There were multiple problems. One was, they were, as they said in their letter, they were disappointed that the person who wants to track would include parks, because according to the law, you're not allowed to trap in parks. So why should anybody be reviewing areas that are parks and spending their time to do that? Another one was that if you don't ask on a specific parcel, let's just go back there, for the very first parcel, 25,002,22,1, whatever parcel that is, I'm not exactly sure. But what do you want to trap there, and why do you want to trap there? And if you're trapping something within a particular season, then the dates need to be whatever that season is, if in fact you want to trap the whole season. So,
But the form doesn't require or specify that level of detail.
well,
And the other concern I have is, those maps are very confusing. And to expect just someone coming off the street to know in intimate detail exactly what reference number and everything else specifies every part, so.
what? He put down the parcels that he wants to trap on. He must know where those parcels are.
Yeah, but is it clear to you? I mean,
Well,
do you
they've
think
got
the
'em.
average citizen, it would be clear what are parks and what's not parks
Yeah.
necessarily?
All you have to do is go ask the engineering department.
Yeah.
They have a map.
And they did at least do that assessment. I guess they walked every single piece of property, the Parks and Recreation Board. Was it Parks Board or Parks and
Parks
Recreation?
and Rec. The,
So what we're saying is we're disappointed with the details.
if you get the law out, which I don't have, because, again, it's at home on my
Yeah,
desk.
he can pull it up for
I
you.
got it.
Thanks, Patty. The application for a traffic permit must be accompanied by the required permit fee, which we haven't set yet, but, hold on. Name of person requesting permission to trap, specific area on the town property where the applicant proposes to trap. That's not on there, but you know what? What am I gonna tell you? I'm gonna place 200 feet from this property line, I'm gonna place another 150 feet down from that. That doesn't seem likely. It seems like the specific area on town property, meaning all of our town property, specific area is 25,002,22,1.
Right.
So that, to me, is okay. A demonstration that the applicant has the required permits and training, okay?
Which you
And
provided.
a narrative with the application setting forth the reasons why the permit is being sought. Please describe the reasons why the permit is being sought, including the time frame for the trapping and identifying the target species and the number of animals you intend to trap. So that's what's on the application, that's what's in the law. I would like to be able to continue to trap on town-owned property like I have been doing for the past years. I would like to reduce the number of coyotes on the island to help dog and cat owners. Coyotes, fox, muskrat, beaver, mink, possum, raccoon. October 25th, February 15th. That doesn't seem to satisfy number 4. What's the reason? And what you're going to trap and the dates. So, the Conservation Advisory Board said that they thought that it might be appropriate to come up with another application, because this is the first time we've ever done this. This is a process that we're going through. And they thought that as we went through these different parcels, we identified a bunch of them as parks. We, meaning the Conservation Advisory Board, with me at that table, helping with the map. And they then said, well, okay, then let's take all the parks out. Let's take the ones out that we're just not interested, even though it's not a park. Fisherman's Landing is not a park. They're not interested in recommending that. Town Common is not a park. They're not.
So actually listed right on the
So,
form all the
so,
different
yeah, and Ron
parcels.
Rezebeck did that.
Good.
I'm not sure that's exactly what we want at this point, but the idea is to try to make the application a little bit better than it is, and a little bit easier for the Conservation Advisory Board and us, ultimately, to go through it, to determine whether or not it's appropriate to trap on certain properties. So, I don't know how much people have done. I've gone through every one of these pieces of property on the map, identified a bunch of them as parks, identified ones that, to me anyway, don't seem appropriate for trapping, and then left the other ones out, thinking, well, might be all right. I don't know if we're ready to do that. That's why I put it on, because I'm worried that we're supposed to answer within 62 days. And that's November 19th.
Have you looked at what they recommended for the
Yes.
parks?
I did.
Is it coinciding with what you're doing?
No.
What you've done? What's the difference?
The difference is they have a whole bunch of properties that they've said are not, in their opinion, to be trapped on. And I personally disagree with a couple of them. Why am I
A
doing
couple
this?
of them.
Why am I doing this? Oh, the 19th is before our next town board meeting. I thought so, I just wanted to make sure. So that's why I put it on the agenda, to see if we're gonna do anything about it.
How many, did the conservation go through the list at all?
Conservation Advisory Board, they had that,
Okay.
yeah, but they,
But they go through their own list?
yes, they took this right here,
Mhm.
the trapping application,
Yeah.
and every one of those pieces of property, I helped. Okay, so this is all our town-owned property, and the yellow, try to be as clear as possible for anybody. All the yellow identifies the parcels. Now, if you take the map that has not been produced, because it takes a lot to produce the maps, but he put it on a flash drive for me, Kevin did in engineering, all the parks. And so I took all the parks off of that map cover, and I went through and I went, all right, okay, so 241017, that's a park. We all know that's Veterans Park, all right? We have the Nike Base Park. We have Ransom Village, that's a park, it's a playground. We have,
Bicentennial.
no, I went over here.
Botanical Park.
That's Colonial Driftwood, that's a park, there's a playground. There's a whole bunch of them that are parks.
Right.
Let's take one that isn't. Let's take this one right here. This is Stony Point. This is Whitehaven. This is the National Grid right of way. So we have a triangular type of piece of property here and a triangular piece of property there. They're town-owned pieces of property, they're not parks. They would be ones that you could ask to trap on, and those would be ones that we would either grant or deny.
Right.
There are other ones, for instance, up here, this is, North Lane comes in here, and there's a cul-de-sac, and then it comes down here, and Jen Court in the cul-de-sac, and it goes over here to South Lane. This is the lineal bike path that goes through it. So, the lineal bike path is actually a park. So you can't trap on that, but this piece of property over here could actually be trapped on because there's not a lot of residences over there, it's not a park. This piece of property over here, this 2405-448, is not a park. It's not part of the lineal bike path. Yet it is on that side of the lineal bike path and very close to the backyards of all those residences. So it may be a property that you say, no, you know what, I don't think that's appropriate. So that's what I've done. That's what the Conservation Advisory Board did. I don't know where the town board is. That's why I put it on the agenda. Just put that right there.
Well, my personal position would be the properties that the Conservation Board identified, I think I would.
They didn't identify it.
Oh, they did not,
No.
okay.
We were going through and we ended up identifying properties, but have you read this letter?
Yes.
Okay, so they did not come up with any kind of recommendation saying, yes, this piece of property might be appropriate or not appropriate or whatever the case may be. They just thought that it was, they were very disappointed to have to go through this whole thing when there were parks already on it.
Yeah.
But Parks and Recreation did walk all the property, and I think that, Ray, you got a point, we can't hold this guy up
So
forever.
if the Parks and Rec and Conservation Advisory Board said that the application is insufficient, why can't we just go back to the person and say, can you give us one where you really show us where you're actually gonna trap?
That's kind of what there was actually kind of a bit of a discussion going on here at the table, and there was some agreement in doing that. I don't know if that ever has actually happened. You've not seen another application.
I could simply call tomorrow and say, look, come back with one where you show us where you wanna trap, not identifying every possible piece of property where you could.
Or at least to narrow
The
down to 5.
applications should be simplified.
Yeah.
Yes, we need
Well, we
to
can
work
simplify
on
it.
the application, but right now, I think we need to address this particular applications and do the best that we can do.
Because one of my other concerns is we actually held them up from even submitting because we didn't even have the form. So we
Well, he-
created some of the
He
problems.
submitted September 19th, so that's okay,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, we're well into the trapping season now, and this is
I'm really,
prime time.
you know what, if we have time in between, if you want me to run home in between and get that and bring it up and bring it up at the board meeting upstairs, I could do that.
So do you think it's easier to ask him rather than try to read his mind? We can call him tomorrow and say, hey, where do you wanna trap, for real? Like, just give us, you identify the properties that you think are appropriate, that way we can compare it to what.
See if you can pick them out from that, what you've already come up with whatever
It would be
conglomeration.
beneficial to have what I've done, going through all these pieces of property, and here's an example. Over there at the Nike base, you see all those fingers that are in there like that? That's called Linden Concourse and Oak Grove. They're all like paper streets, and there's a whole bunch of different properties over there. Some are by the town, some are not owned by the town, some are owned by individuals. To me, that becomes a very difficult situation to say, okay, the town boundary is here, but the person's boundary is here, yet you have absolutely no idea because it's just open land.
Yeah.
And it's right next to the Nike base where there's already trails going in through that area and stuff like that. So even though that is not
You wanna
a
avoid
park, you could very well want to avoid it, but it's town-owned property that's open, it's not a
Well, I
park.
think the work you've done, put into the new application and maybe considered by the two boards and say, what do you think of it? I don't wanna make a call on that today, because I haven't looked, your work might be totally perfect, but I think we should consider it further. But for this gentleman, we should also probably tell him, can you come back to us with an updated list that doesn't include any parks and only places you actually wanna trap? And maybe even refer him to your list and say, look, this is some of the work that Councilman Bilica did,
That would be helpful, I think.
alright?
And I think we need to put a time limit on it
Well, we
for
need,
this week.
yeah, we
Well,
need,
he wants to trap quick, so he'll find out in 2 days.
you'll apply and at our next workshop.
Which is
On Monday. You wanna do it?
Maybe revises it,
I'm gonna
you
do
send it
before
to
then.
conservation.
No, I don't think, we're not, no.
We're talking
I don't
about
think
his
we need
first
to do that.
application.
We've got the recommendations now. it's
We
like
have the
our-
recommendations.
Our next actual meeting is Wednesday night. That's actually a board meeting.
Well, we might be able to.
Presentation, you can't do it that
We have a workshop scheduled Monday night, a week from tonight, in between
That's
the regular
our
town, which is the 14th.
Right, I
We can do it
won't-
Monday night.
I won't be here, but it doesn't, I don't have to. Maybe we can have a meeting between now and Friday.
Thursday.
Maybe we
Friday.
can figure it out.
Let's see what he says first, and then
Okay.
we get back to you guys. I mean, I think that's the best way.
That's what you wanna do then, so I'll just, I'll make a motion to table it upstairs.
I'll second the motion.
That's what we wanna do?
I think that's the
Upstairs is a
appropriate,
good idea.
given what
We'll
we
do
have.
upstairs.
I think that's the quickest way forward, to
And
really
then-
find out where we are.
Okay, cause I didn't know
And if
where
we
we
have
were.
to run in.
And that way you can go,
afterwards.
we can refer him to the work you've done and see where that is, and maybe that helps him.
Patty, this goes here, this goes here. That's that. There's the law, there's the letter.
We can take that.
Not that one. The original, this one right
Yeah,
here?
yeah, got it.
No.
And the law allows him to modify his application without restarting the whole clock over. So if he's got some narrow parcels that he's identified, I think he can still act on that without a whole new application.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds good.
Is there a vote for this then? Roll call?
Well,
We're
we're
just
gonna,
gonna do
I'm
it
gonna do
upstairs.
it, it's on the
Alright.
agenda.
You got it?
So what would the roll call be on that?
I'll make a motion to table it,
Table it.
and then we'll second it and table it, and then we can bring it up hopefully soon. You know what? My whole packet's in.
We'll get you a new packet.
Right here? There you go.
Ask and you shall receive.
Thanks, Patty. I don't think there was anyone else on there, I'm pretty sure.
So next item, Mr. Maloney, ready for this on the, how do you wanna set this up?
I just need, we need an update, because we know that, there was a timeline involved, and maybe Jim can tell us what's going on and where we are, because the building's supposed to be up, so.
Welcome, Mr. Maloney.
Hello. I don't know if anybody saw any of the timelines I've been sending around, or any of the scheduling that's gone back and forth. Has anybody seen any of that?
Essentially, your goal is to break ground in November 15th, is that correct?
Yeah, we've got this week and next week to finish closing up the marina and getting everything winterized. And, at that point, we'll be done with that, so, a double D will come out and, scrape that parcel and lay 3 inches of stone down. And then the, builder, we already have we have a verbal agreement that he's gonna come out and drill his holes and pour his footings and set the concrete posts in the ground before there's a freeze. And then in December, I have a verbal commitment that he will build, and he's gonna give me something in writing, as soon as I get together with him after we finish closing up. So the shell of the building will be up in December, and then throughout the winter, we'll do the interior build out.
When are you gonna get the letter from this building?
I can meet with him as soon as we get closed up there, which is, we'll be finished up at the end of next week.
kids with working ground on the 15th then.
Yeah, because Dan said he can come in, Drexcilia said he'd be in there, and, he said, just give me a couple of days, I'll come in and he knows exactly what we've gotta do. As soon as he lays that stone down, on 3 days' notice, the surveyor will come in and mark out we've already got that all laid out, ready to go, so it's closed.
Where's your building?
It's, Tom Lovewell from TNT up in Newfane. We've done several, we've probably done a dozen or so on the island even this year. I think we just finished one.
So what does that do to, your ongoing,
As far as ongoing,
court, appearances?
well, they've got, there's an adjournment till the 29th
Of what?
And-
Of November?
of November, yep, and then the court just this schedule is what was discussed with Mark Nemeth and everybody at the last time. So I guess they're just gonna want some updates, and as long as we follow through with this, then it's just, from what I understand, to be adjourned again.
Okay.
Lawyer just wants photos, just give me photos, when you put the stone down, give me photos.
And then
When there's a
the
piece of equipment
contract
there, give me a photo.
And then a letter of contract from the contractor.
Hey.
Which doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're gonna sit down with him like that, he's only really available on Saturday or Sunday. I figure we'll probably do it, I'll start blowing water lines out this Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Just important to really get that done before you as soon as it freezes, you're finished, there's 5 miles of water lines in that place. And everything's gotta be cleaned out.
Okay. Anything else for Mr. Maloney? Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So,
Sorry, the earlier part, was that the agenda review? Because there was
Yeah.
a couple things I had on there,
sure, go ahead.
just real quick. One is the bid by John Whitney for the
Bless you.
window, I believe it is. So that's a professional service, so in theory, because it's a professional service, it's not required to be rebid. And we've had them doing this now apparently for about 30 years. I'm not gonna say we should hold this one up, but I think we should probably send it back out for bidding in the future so that we know for sure we're getting a competitive bid.
Which
Well,
one are
we
you?
you don't bid it at all, Mike. You can ask for quotes and things like that,
Quotes.
just like the professional services, people that
That's
we
what I
just
mean.
interviewed and
You're
stuff
right.
like that.
Yes,
So you would ask a number of people to come in and give you their
So we can
presentation on what
benchmark
they're
it.
going to do for your water and wastewater services,
right.
you know.
So I know that this company has been doing it for about 30 years, but I just wanna make sure that we're being competitively priced and et cetera, but I don't think there's justification to hold this particular one up. But I just wanted to bring that up, and then we'll suggest that to John going forward, to get that ready and make that happen. If everyone's in agreement or okay with that?
I suggest you speak to Mr. Whitney. I mean,
I did.
and he was okay with that?
I asked him about whether this had been bid, and it was not, but I didn't ask him about the rebidding question.
I think if you have a conversation with John, it would be the best
Okay.
to see.
Well, that's all I'm saying.
Right.
If no one has a problem with me asking him to get a requote, this isn't a
Well,
motion
I'm
or
not
anything.
okaying that you have, that he has to get a requote. I'd like you to talk to him and see what the process is and
If
whether
he's okay
he
with
thinks
the-
that.
He can go ahead and do it.
Yeah, he
I'm not
may-
gonna mandate it, I'll just.
You might wanna
allow
have a
him to
meeting
get
with the
back
town
to
board to give us an update on
That's fine.
what that's all about and
Yep.
stuff like that.
us. Okay. So I will follow up with him and just get his opinion and then bring it back to the board. Next item was the meeting with the, New York State on Wednesday. So I saw an email, which
This
I
is
think,
not on the agenda, this is here.
it's on this agenda, actually. So the agenda, we're agenda reviewing.
Okay.
So, and I have 2 points on there about the parks. So regarding the meeting, right now we have it at the library, someone sent an email and questioned, there's potential that a lot of people could show up at that meeting. The school is actually available. I don't know if at this late hour we wanna change the location, it might be advisable.
If we don't, we'll have people stand out in the parking lot.
I think, well, two things. Well, I think we were trying to, you requested that it's at the library. And I think we could change it, but there's also the risk that not enough people will hear about where the location is.
We could put a posting on the door, I think, and it's, I mean, it's Vidal to Ransom, would be a 5-minute inconvenience for people.
I think that's true, but I think we should first talk about the people who are gonna do the presentation and see if they're comfortable with the change. Which I'm not saying they're not going to be, but I think we should ask.
I don't,
Do that by tomorrow morning.
do you think they would be concerned with what location?
Yeah, I think it's just out of manners, we should ask them, is it okay if we change the venue? Speaking in
Okay.
front of 300 people versus 20 people is a big difference.
Well, it would have been it fits 100.
The
So the
presentation,
difference between 100 and 300 isn't that big of a difference, if it's even more than 100.
I think it's a difference, especially when the style of the presentation, I'm not sure what they've done.
So as a
I think we should
courtesy,
ask
we can
them.
do that by tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
So I already have this, I've already contacted the school, they already said that it is available. I'm gonna go forwards as if, we'll keep the library reserved, but I do wanna give them a heads up for courtesy as well. That we may end up shifting it to the school, and I'll proceed with the school, and if you could just get back to us, Nate, on that.
Just need to let me know so the posting changes too.
Let me see what they say.
The time schedule a little bit, but we can put a note on the library, which,
Let's see what the parks say. I mean, because they asked for the presentation, so let me see what they say.
okay.
The only issue is you need a resolution of board to change the meeting time and place, and there are open meeting
Yeah.
law requirements as to how soon you can do that. So if you actually wanna change it, you need to have a meeting of the board to change.
And I'll call the superintendent.
But you'd have to have so on Wednesday or whenever.
Or we can do a resolution
Today's
here just saying
Monday.
either location's acceptable.
Yeah. If it's acceptable with the state
There's no action.
And
the
taken
superintendent.
and the
I think.
superintendent.
So if
But
you
it's
wanna
your-
put the motion forwards, I think we'll be okay with that.
We have to
There's no need for it.
we have to post it by Wednesday.
The meeting's already
Well,
posted and the
it's Wednesday.
location date is changed.
Right.
Okay. But if we change the
The
location date, the
The
meeting's
location, I
Wednesday.
think we do,
We
This
do.
is
need to
awful
post it.
late, oh my gosh, to get people moved,
It would be, I think if we get this resolved tomorrow morning
yeah.
and we decide to change it, there'll be sufficient ability to get it out. We can get it to Jody and Al DeGran, we can put it on our own website. I'm sure,
And posted it
I'm
on-
sure as soon as one person knows about it, there's gonna be many people that know about it. And the people that unfortunately don't know about it and get to the library probably aren't showing up right at the meeting time or probably showing
So
up a little
let-
bit before.
I'll take care of it in the morning.
So,
I'll take care of it in the morning. I assume it's going to be okay. I just say as a matter of courtesy, I want to ask both before I assume.
Well, can we make a motion that we move it with the
Subject to the-
approval,
yeah.
subject to
Subject
the
to approval.
approval of,
is that okay, Peter, to do that?
Yeah, I'm just gonna add some, open government opinions on it. I mean, at the end of the day, the real issue relates to whether there's action taken. I don't think there's gonna be action, there's not gonna be action taken by the board, right?
No.
I mean,
Think so.
it's an informational meeting.
yeah,
Big discussion.
yeah, it's really their
It's
information.
discussion, it's deliberation, hopefully we come to some agreement or consensus or compromise or who knows what. So I mean, it should be considered,
It's their agenda,
Yeah.
so when they come, if they send the agenda, that's what we should follow.
Yeah, I'm looking at a couple opinions, but I mean, at the end of the day, the purpose of the change is to make sure that the public can actually attend the meeting, right?
Exactly.
yeah.
I mean, if you keep in its current location, you know it's gonna be overflow anyway. So it's just.
So I'll take care of it in the morning, and then on top of that, you know, if we can't change it, then we can't change it. I'm not going to push it off for another week.
So I'll second that motion.
And subject to Peter's review.
Right.
Peter, if you can't give us an answer now, we'll get an answer from you tomorrow.
So there was you made a motion?
Yeah, I second it. I think we're gonna need to vote on that.
Okay?
What-
Roll call.
Do you wanna
We don't
read
need
the,
to do a roll call, he's just adding the formality of changing the venue. I'm not here in the morning because town hall is closed, so I'm either gonna night, or someone's gonna have to communicate with me in
I
the
can do
morning?
it in the morning.
We'll talk in the morning, we'll get it done.
So one other matter of business there then, so once you confirm that, could Cindy just, I've already given the, school a heads up on it, if you guys could just solidify that plan with the school.
I'll talk to the school tomorrow.
And if you want, just shoot me an email and I can cancel it with the library.
Okay,
We need to vote.
I can post.
We don't have to
You
vote.
don't need to vote.
Not if it's all, if you're all unanimous. Don't need to do a formal roll call.
okay.
Kind of workshop.
Anything else, Mike?
I think that was it.
Community center, architectural interview, feedback. Can I go around the room, guys, give you your comments?
Right over there. Do we have the books with us?
I don't have the books with me, no.
I only sat through 2 of them, so.
It seems like 2 of the groups are really on board, and the last group out of the Rochester area have done a considerable amount of light work.
Passero?
Yeah. And I think we should do some work ourselves first. And then ask them, actually, maybe we should ask both Cerro and, oh my gosh.
Clark Patterson Lee, Wendell, Silvestri?
Alex, that's
Clark Patterson Lee,
Mm-hmm.
that's who it was,
Yep.
yes. For their, we need an idea what's it gonna cost
Yeah, right.
to take us through the information gathering phase and the public sentiment phase and stop. I think that's
So basically,
what I'd kind of be interested
I'm
in
not
doing.
for that. I'm interested in doing the whole feasibility. I've seen too many projects get off the rails by just doing it piecemeal. This is a huge project. I just wanna look at it. And, I think it's really, it's gonna require the type of things that, is this the one you like?
That was one of the ones I liked,
And,
Cerro, or however you pronounce that.
That's the one I like too. Is that the same? Oh, okay, I was confused because I picked this one, it's the same one, they brought in their thing. Okay, so we're down to 2, but I still, and I understand where you're coming from too, but this is a huge project going forward for many years probably. And I think in order to do it right and to make sure we don't go off the rails, not just this board, but the next board, depending on how it is put together in phases, I think we need to do it correctly. And I've been on too many projects that really got derailed by us trying to do work that we're not qualified to do.
How did the school do it initially? You were on that committee, weren't you? I know that project was way larger in scale, but
Yeah.
what was their process initially?
Well, the first thing they have to have is a survey. So they have to hire a firm to come in and do surveys of their school system, say, okay, you haven't updated your security system, and your ADA isn't this and that, and your boiler is 30 years old, and you probably ought to be replacing that, so they come with that. And then when they came in with that, correct me if I'm wrong, okay, we were there too, so chime in on this. Then they formed a citizens group. And out of that big citizens group, they formulated small citizens group that walked through the venues. I and Cindy were co-chairman for the Sidway and Transportation buildings. So we went walking through with a small group of 6 people, and we went through and looked at the Cannons report and said, okay, the library needs to be changed, the computer room needs to be changed, the physical therapy room needs to be, and we went through and took a look at it and see how bad things were, and came back. When we rated them, we gave them 1s to 5s.
But did Cannon initially come up with the ideas, or did the citizens group come up with the
No,
ideas?
Cannon came up with the ideas, because they were required to by law. The school has to do that upgrade, I think it's every 5 years, but I'm not positive.
I think for a community
A
center,
needs assessment or something like that.
That's what I'm getting at, how do you determine what the needs are in that building that,
See, that's what a feasibility study would do, that's
but
part
that
of
might not
their
be
job.
the citizens' input though.
No, it requires citizens, they have to do public meetings, they
Okay,
have to do
that-
quorum, or charrettes, they have to do all that, so that once it's put together, even though we can sit here and toss a lot of things around and say, this is what we want, and ultimately, the community may say, we're not so
Okay,
big
as
on
long
it.
as they're doing that, that's kinda what I was getting at, is who did,
Then
are
that's
they
a huge
taking it?
undertaking,
They're taking the input from
yes.
meetings.
And they do the cost analysis, they do location analysis, they don't pick the location, they do the analysis and give you different pros and cons in each location. And they even talked about, the last group was excellent, and they talked about how they went into it at one point, at one community, where, you know, the board says, well, we wanna do a stripped-down version. Well, the community came back and said, we don't want a stripped-down version. Okay, but this is what it's gonna cost you if we don't do a strip, well, yeah, but we want this, and we want this, and we want this. And they turned out that they did the bigger version, because that's what the community wanted, and that's what the community demanded, but then it's easier to do, if that's what you have to do, bond money and whatnot, because you have the public who's bought into it, and they're driving the truck now.
I do kinda like that idea.
So I think that one of these groups, that's essentially what they'll bring to us. We've tried doing it on a
Right.
smaller scale, it's
Right.
overwhelming.
I think, I don't disagree with you, but I think people who've been around for a long time have a bit of an understanding, what do we need right now to help our community and our recreation program? There are certain things that we need in order to do that. There are certain things that would be nice. It would be nice to move the Golden Age Center and have it there. It would be nice to have a library there. It would be nice to have a theater there. It would be nice to have all of those things. But we need to, if we go this great big long route and we start saying, oh, well, what about this and what about that and the movie theater, what about an ice rink? Well, you know what? We start doing all that kind of stuff, and this whole thing's gonna end up getting derailed, because people are gonna say, oh, here we go again. You know, you're gonna want a $20 million project, and you're gonna get people upset about it.
That's exactly why we need to do something like that. Because when you start piecemealing it, or you say, oh, I want an ice rink, and then you have all the community come in and say, we want basketball. You know, and the thing is, until you determine what the community needs and wants, then as a board, we're not supposed to be telling them what they need and what they want. I mean, we're gonna drive the ship for them, but I think they're the ones that helps us build the ship.
I think there's certain things we can say we need. I think there could do
Basic stuff.
I think you can do a hybrid version where you can say, look, we want to take this through a certain process, and it's going to take time. But stage one could be this.
I get
When
that,
when I
but
hear
they
years-
determine
Yeah,
what the
when I hear
different
years,
stages
I think hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars wasted.
are. No,
That's what I think.
no.
When I hear
I
years
guess
for a feasibility
I
study,
guess you would get a bid from, or a cost from these people on what it would cost to do it.
so I think we can do that as a next step. Say, what's it going to cost for us to go through the study? Give me a timeline. How long is it going to take?
And I would like to look at the downfalls of not doing a study and trying to piecemeal it together and put together what the town board needs instead of what the
We
community needs.
can do a study, but I think when I hear years in a comprehensive study, I think it's never
Nobody
going to
said
happen.
years. Nobody said years, and these people don't do this kind of job to make it happen over, for years. It may be a plan that you can implement over the years, but there would be that first initial thing of what we need right now and what we can build on. So you need to do that in order to know how big a piece of property you can get.
We definitely
Where to
need a
get it.
plan, and we need to take do the due diligence to do the
That's all
plan
I'm saying.
properly.
Orchard Park's going through this right now, aren't they? Or is it East Aurora?
What's your-
Orchard Park just built a giant one.
No, then who's going through it? There's Amber, is it Amber?
Remember it was,
What are they doing?
In West
also
Seneca.
Tonawanda.
This is Orchard Park.
In West Seneca.
Yeah, we got some place in Florida, Tonawanda, that's scoping it all out for 'em.
See, the one company gives us
Yeah, I like this.
needs assessment are for 11.7, a feasibility study for 16.7, a conceptual design for 18, a site selection and procurement, well, forget about the procurement because we don't want to buy it, is 28, but we're
We spent $7,500 putting in a pavilion. You're looking at a huge multi-community center that this town needs and wants. So you gotta look at what you're building too. You're not building a shed, you're not building,
Yeah, there's
A
no question
pavilion.
about that, absolutely.
I say,
no
I say we
question.
go back to these two firms, now we ask them, give us a
Yeah.
quote, give us a timeline, and then just with any quote or any timeline, then we go back and say, well, how about this instead?
and I don't, we talked about this, you weren't there, and you weren't there, just Ray and I were there. But Ray brought it up, and that I had not had conversation with this board about whether we would do it in-house, or whether we would buy it or own it or what. So that discussion hasn't even been had yet amongst this board that I'm aware of. So I would like to have that discussion too.
But I think we're having that, this is what this is about, right?
This is about getting a feasibility and what it would cost to go forward, whether it be private or, and then when you start looking at private and you see what the costs are, that's when you start looking at your bids and whatnot, that's what I
Do
thought.
we agree that, that based on the review of the documentation and the interviews you've had, that Clark Patterson, Lee, and Passero are the two we wanna talk to further?
Yes,
I do.
I don't,
I do too.
So do I send out letters to the other two saying thank you for your time?
I think so. And then we ask these two for what?
costs,
Costs and timeline.
yes,
Go ahead,
Costs
Ray.
and
There's
feasibility.
only one caveat in this whole thing. We had one, presentation to us from a group that was a consortium, and they addressed this differently than the others. Because they already have a piece of property and they're already talking about what we can do on that piece of property and what we can do to enhance Grand Island and so on. And I don't think we should kick them out.
Okay,
That's
I
not one of
agree.
these guys?
that's one of,
That's this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Silvestri.
And they were
I believe those
excellent, I
two,
guess
too.
the only reason I kinda started ruling them out is that they were limited to one piece of property. But I think that they were, now that I remember the conversation, they were amenable to any piece of property. But that's one that
But-
they
but
have
they're-
option
but
on.
they-
But they've partnered together
Right.
with the owners of that property, a finance gentleman and an architect, to try to work that out. And I would be interested to see what they wanted to come up with.
well, let's do that. My reason why I was going away from them, their original presentation I thought was the best because of that. But the feedback I received was that it was a lot more messy than we first assumed. But I think what you're saying is right.
Well, it's two-pronged to me. It's
Right.
two-pronged. It's one, it's the building, the building of the building, and whether that's happening on town property or not town property, whether we're leasing it and with an option to buy, or whatever we're doing, that's that. The communication with the public to find out what's the public interested? What does the people who are running recreation programs in the town think we need? What does town folks think we need? And what do we want? And hopefully add that on in the future.
So here's
It's
the,
not just a recreation center though, it's a community center.
so here,
civic and
I
whatnot,
honestly
right?
think that if we went to the public and said, what do you want? The response would be the Taj Mahal. I mean, people want all kinds of stuff.
Well,
So I
then you
think-
start saying, here's what the taxes are, and then they tell you what they're
So
willing to
part-
do.
Well, I've heard all kinds of things already. So I think part of our role is to limit that and control it.
For them to, well, I think that you limit it when you find it out and when you do the feasibility study. I've been through these things. The thing is there's like 5 top things that come right to the top, but this is what the majority wants. Okay, top priority, and then it's your second level of priority, then it's your third level of priority.
So I think everyone agrees here that we need to go forward with more investigation and a feasibility study. No one's saying we don't need to do a feasibility study.
Okay.
So let's talk about timeline and talk about what more they cost.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
So only tell Wendell thank you? But no
Yeah.
thank you? And
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then we'll talk more about what we wanna ask the other guys offline, I guess.
So I mean, we haven't eliminated that location, the mall as a possibility. is that
No,
right?
no.
Okay. Cause I think,
It would always be a possibility, because
The
it's a
only
private
thing-
piece of property that you go
They all
and
can go
buy,
for
but
it.
the property manager already has an in on that. there's already been a conversation going on, whereas an outsider, if I decided that I wanted to do something, and I wanna build this for the town of Grand Island, and I try to go buy that plaza,
He could also do
I
that.
can't buy that plaza,
He's
it's
already
way
got
too
the
expensive.
option,
Oh, yeah,
if we do something like this there, he's already locked the option in that he's the one that will do it.
right.
Is he talking about a lease buyback though?
No, we haven't talked about
We
that,
haven't
we
talked
haven't
about
got
that.
into that conversation.
I think that's where it's going.
And that's all
I
something,
mean, I don't know how you're gonna do the project without something like that, because
We just
It'd
found
be
it out,
double.
we just saw it with the pavilion.
it'd be double,
I agree.
True.
triple.
Okay, so we have a meeting of the minds on this so far?
Yeah,
Sort of.
We
We're
need to go
gonna
forward with that,
contact
this
ask them for,
prices, costs.
ask them, I don't know how we, I don't know how we state this, what do we want from them? We want a preliminary study on what should be in it and maybe where it should be.
And a timeline of how long it's gonna take him to do it.
Yes,
That would be good.
project
'Cause
timeline,
that will limit
and
them and
look,
keep them
so
to
two
draw it
things.
out.
what should the building consist of and where should it be? And their assessment.
And
And-
timeline and cost.
And I don't think we need to get into, we can identify properties. If this structure is 40,000 square feet, and then you need X amount of the parking lot and so on and so on, we know what properties that can
We
fit
could
on.
do anything we want to help facilitate the process.
Right. I don't think we have to pay them to look at our tax maps to see what properties it would fit on.
I
If
think
you wanna
that's
suggest
just-
information, I would
It's
go
just
ahead.
part of their process, they're gonna do that anyway,
Maybe
for
they will,
cost
I don't know.
analysis. But for cost analysis, you'd have to do that. The thing is, I have no objection with you throwing it, and telling them, would you look at this piece of property too, because I think it's valuable. So, I mean, I think that's another way of, if there's 2, 3 pieces of property you think would be viable,
I
give
think,
it to them to
I-
do a cost analysis on it.
I'm worried about that, Bev. Because the more digging they do on property, the more the cost of property is gonna go up.
Agreed.
What's the building gonna cost to build? And then, what's it gonna cost to put it on that piece of property? Meaning that piece of property is $100,000, and you're gonna have to spend $200,000 because the utility's gotta go back 100 feet. Or, on this piece of property, the property's $150,000, but you're only gonna pay $25,000 because the utilities only have to go 20 feet.
The way these people explained it, I believe it's these people, they said that's part of what they do when they look at the properties, is where are
know,
the utilities,
and I don't
how
wanna-
much,
I don't want them to do that. We don't need to pay them the cost to do that. Our engineering
it's
department
part
can
of
do
the
that.
process, it's
I
part
don't
of what
wanna
they do.
pay them. I don't wanna pay people to do things that we can do.
Bev, I think I hear what you're saying, Bev. You wanna do it the right way, you wanna make sure it's done properly. So the scope of what we ask them to do, we can talk to them, Bev. We can, let's lay that out. Right now,
But the
I think
thing
we're not
is,
gonna
is
resolve it right
It's
now.
all well and good to say, we can do this and we can do that, but once we bring it in-house and this, there's so much other work that goes on in here, as we know.
That's true.
That things get put on the back burner, and then all of a sudden you're waiting. You would like to see it move along quicker, so would I. I think this would be the quicker way to do it, and do it right, and do it in a way that we know exactly what we're getting ourselves into, not for now,
Well, they
but
can-
for
they
5,
can
6
quote
years
that,
down the
and
road.
We can decide whether the price of that versus us doing it is worth
Yeah.
pursuing. So let's just get a quote
Absolutely.
on that.
Absolutely, I'm agreed with that.
Okay.
That's all right.
Okay, Bev?
Yeah.
Ready, everybody? Okay. Bev, solar law, you wanna give us an update on
Just
that?
a quick, I just wanna let everybody know where I was in it.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot this item.
What?
The Country Glen Apartments need a reapproval for a site plat. It's simply a reapproval for a site plat that was originally approved in 2006. Bod Westfall is recommending the reapproval.
What's the location of this one?
Down Road,
What's that?
down road.
The department store, between
It was
baseline.
approved in 2006, he wants to just to reapprove it. If you want me to hold off, we can, but,
So we could, you just need a motion here at the workshop?
yeah, to reaffirm the negative declaration under seeker.
Yeah,
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. So move on to the solar law.
okay. Just a quick update, so everybody knows, I continue to work on it, so as Mike knows and a couple other, I've researched at least 7 different towns that are in process or already have finished their laws. I've researched all of the state and federal laws and regulations. Recently, I had a conference call with Jessica Backer from the state, for Sustainable Energy and Solar Law, who I took that class with, and they were willing to look over the law that Dan and I have already worked a lot on, and made some suggestions. I also met with, at Mike's suggestion, the project manager for one of the solar projects that's looking to be done here, and went through that. And so I have all that information together and a lot of red lines through the ones that Dan and I have already done, and Dan and I are gonna get together very shortly in the next week or two and fine tune it, absorb everything that we've learned from the state. And actually the solar project law, looked at the law that we were kind of, was a draft, we're not even done with it yet. But he said, you know, guys are going in the right direction, and I think they can work with you guys with this. And so, just to let you know, I'll be sitting down with Tom, or not Tom, Dan, via conference, to finalize it, fine tune it the way we want it from all this input that we've gotten. And I'm hoping within the next week or two to get it back to you so that we can get it on the agenda for a public hearing, maybe at the next meeting or the meeting after. So, and at that point, we can refer it to appropriate boards. So that's just to let you know. And you'll all be sent a copy as soon as I get it done with Dan, and Dan does his legal stuff on it. Everybody will get a copy so you can look it over and give any feedback either to me or to Dan before we get it on the next agenda. So that's it. Anyone have any questions for me?
No questions from me.
on that?
No.
Good work, Bev.
Good job.
Fiber project, Bev?
Well, the fiber project, the town board, we took it, I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but Jim was able to attend and take my paperwork, and I heard he gave him a good pitch. And we're waiting for them to get back to us. Seeing as my voice is getting low, can you kind of just give them the overview? It's basically,
You're talking about his presentation to the school board.
Presentation to the school board was to talk about the feasibility study on the fire project with ECC. We had talked about this at a joint meeting of the school board, town board in January. They've been receptive. They now have it and are going to respond back to us. We should have a conversation with the superintendent and the business manager as to where they intend to go with this. It is recommended from the school board that we pay it. We've already put $6,000 on the half of it with the recommendation the school pick up the other half. Their budget is such that they wish that we would just move forward with the project and they would be involved. The biggest grants and so
Meaning
forth.
they would still pay 50/50?
They don't wanna pay the 50/50.
they don't want to pay for the feasibility study. The point is though, most of the grant funding will come through the school.
Yes. I think
But
it's,
they still haven't said no either.
yeah, they haven't said no. They were flirting with, well, can you make a better deal? Meaning you come up, you pay more, we'll pay less. So I think that we'll hear something from them very soon. All this study is like, what you're doing with the center here is basically looking, what will it cost, what's involved, for you all to make a decision, do we even bother to get into this business? Do we even bother to put up a fire project on Grand Island, putting our facilities and not paying Time Warner? So they're in the same boat. So it isn't about, you're making commitment to actually do it, all you're doing is getting the numbers so you know if it's even reasonable to do.
What it would cost to do.
And the total cost of the project obviously was
So,
$12,000.
put this in perspective, guys. The monthly Time Warner bill for the school is like $9,000. The feasibility study is $12,000. And to see if we can save all that money in perpetuity, forever.
Why wouldn't they pay half then?
Because it's a slower process. They weren't sure about it. They don't know about it. This is a no-brainer. There's schools.
Well, it should be a no-brainer for them too.
I agree.
I agree.
I mean,
They're
it's,
paying.
My
Well, listen,
feeling is that if we do it, they're on board with it.
So let me say this. I think I purposely, it was Bev's thing. So and because of Bev's situation, Jim went. I believe in this. I think it's good for Grand Island. It's the infrastructure of the future. I think the school should be involved, and once we get going with it, they will be involved. But I think we should lead. I don't think the risk to the town is significant. It's a $12,000 risk to see if it's possible to do it.
And I did talk to
Yeah, but I guess
Pam.
I don't understand why, if it was that beneficial, they wouldn't spend, I mean, they have the bigger dollar amounts.
They also feel
I mean,
like
they-
they're
they're
playing
like-
the
They're
lion's share.
monstrous and we're
Well,
the little
people,
town.
people are sometimes, people, you know, I can't say why people make the decisions they make, but I can tell you that why we should make the decision, because it's good for Grand Island. I think even, I just read today that the Niagara Falls Airport is doing this. Niagara Falls Airport is, I don't think they have any business. They're putting in their own feasibility study to do a infrastructure project for their own
Broadband.
independent broadband. So, I mean, this is something that's not that
This
outrageous.
is actually,
Go ahead.
this is actually something that is, you know, we look at just our municipality buildings right now, but this is something that could be widespreading and also could help our residents, because once we walk down this road, Time Warner is now competing. And you're gonna see a lot, and people say, why are we so much higher? Why don't we have the higher speedier, whatever? And that doesn't mean that we're gonna be doing the programming. That has nothing to do with Time Warner, but it does have to do with the internet and that sort of stuff. And that's when you get the more competition you get, the better service you're gonna get from Time Warner for the rest of our residents as well. And as this grows, I mean, gosh, I mean.
So we install, so the 12,000 is,
It's a feasibility
that's just
study.
a study.
They will do a whole study on all the lines, and how it's gotta be hooked up,
And
and
what
look,
the cost would be, and what
Costs
the
and
cost
everything.
savings would be as well?
yes.
The whole thing,
Everything.
and then if it's well worth it, you guys can say, well, that was stupid. I mean,
And I
we'll
did-
find out. They'll
I did-
tell us what it's going to save and the whole thing.
Have
Economic
we heard of other
development,
towns that have done this?
It's happening all
yeah,
over the place.
it's happening
Study
all
right
over.
now.
I can get you,
The county's doing a study, but
county.
this kind of puts us ahead of those other projects
that,
that are ready
and
to
thank
go.
you for mentioning that, because that
They're
was the
doing,
next
I
thing.
mean, we don't, if we don't do anything, the county's gonna do this, but by doing this, you'll be at the head of the line for
He's
the
right.
types of funding
He's
to help
absolutely
do
right.
it, so
The same people that
it's,
I guess that'd be the other question, could we get grant money for this?
we can look for that, but they're coming in at bare bones price, trust me.
Gra- and gr-
12,000, it's usually $40,000.
And grant money takes time, and it takes years.
But the reason that they came in cheap is because the same company is,
Non-sweet home hammers.
no. They're
They've
doing
done
a
a couple.
feasibility study for the whole county. And they said, they're doing it at 40,000 feet. We're gonna do one at 10,000 feet. They think that this is the way they wanna go, and you know they do, the governor wants to do that. The thing is, we would be one of the few towns, if not the only town, that has their feasibility study done local. And then all the funding, and you talked about funding, that's where funding comes into play. When you include the library, which is a county library, and you include, well, if they're gonna put lines in, why can't we hook to them? There's a whole lot of things. I think that it puts us in the front of the pack, and I think it's well worth the $12,000. I talked to Pam, it's in the professional service budget for this year if we want it. I got 6,000 from economic development, so I'm only looking for another 6,000. So I'd really love to see it move forward and put us in the front of the pack, like Chris said.
Can we
So,
wait a
We can wait.
short period of time to get the school to respond and kind of?
Yes, yeah, 'cause they'll probably
Maybe lean on
respond.
them a little bit more.
Exactly.
I'd like to have a
Let's wait
decision by
on it.
January. I mean,
Well,
Yeah,
the thing
yeah,
is,
well, that's,
all right.
that's
they're
good enough,
gonna-
that's,
they're meeting in another week or two.
right.
So we should have an answer from them in another week or two. I believe that
Do we have a
once
fifth
they,
Monday or not?
once they see
more.
that we're gonna move forward with this anyway, I think they'd rather be part of this than leasing their lines from
No.
us.
Yeah.
Because that's what could happen.
Unless the board is against it, I would like to talk to them. I mean, I didn't last time. That, unless you're against it, I mean, I would like to come and speak to them next time.
Oh, they'll probably make a decision next time, or
Okay.
maybe they already have, I don't know. But I'm not opposed to that.
Okay.
But I would like for this board to put their commit behind it, and I think that is going to nudge that board. And I think we should do it regardless of what the school does. I just believe in this program.
So do I, but I think what Ray's saying is right. Give them some more
Yeah, I
time.
think so too. But, I mean, by next week, I think we're gonna be hearing something back from them. So,
Because if we say we're gonna do it, then their decision is easy.
They're gonna-
Oh, okay, yeah, well, good, that sounds
yeah,
like
but
a
if
great
we
idea.
say we're gonna do
We'll
it, and
be
they're gonna have to lease
spectators.
their lines from us, if they wanna be part of this project, then,
And somebody's explained that to them?
No,
He can.
I'll explain it to him.
If you're gonna go talk to him, you can explain
If
that.
you wanna play basketball and I have the basketball, you're gonna have to play it.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to pay for it, huh?
exactly. I
Okay.
mean, don't you think?
It's all right.
I think it's a good,
It's my court.
yeah,
It's our
exactly.
cable.
That's right. Do you wanna use my basketball court?
Yeah.
Cause if you do,
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
that's all I have.
so with that, can we bring the meeting to a close here?
I do have an answer for you on the
Okay,
open
go ahead.
meetings law thing that you wanted. I
Sure.
got a case right on point. Even changing the location the night of the meeting and putting something on the door where we had an overflow crowd, third department case finding it to be okay. So I think that
Okay.
Okay.
you're good with this, if you want
So
to
you'll
move it.
talk to.
I'll talk to him tomorrow morning.
Good.
Still should do a resolution of the board though.
We did.
Okay, subject to.
Yep.
Yeah, so you
We're
should
ahead of
be,
you.
all right, that contingency is checked off then.
Hey, before we go, can we go to executive session for a couple comments to ask for your questions?
Yep. So I'll make a,
Motion to go on executive session.
is there a second?
Okay.